On this episode, I am joined by drummer Charlie Engen. Charlie has been a drummer in the Minnesota music scene for many years, but the past 5 years has almost seemed a meteoric rise. After completing his master's degree in percussion performance at the McNally Smith College of Music in 2015, he took to the internet posting performance videos that quickly gained him attention for his masterful and amazing approach to drumming. Attention came in many forms, from aspiring and influential drummers to companies and bands like Scale the Summit and Ideology. Some of his admirers were members of the band Five Finger Death Punch, including then drummer Jeremy Spencer. In fall of 2018, Jeremy was having health problems, and Charlie was asked to fill in on Death Punch's fall 2018 tour. Charlie's first performance with the band was on November 6, 2018. In December, Jeremy exits the band, and Charlie tours and records with the band throughout 2019. F8, Death Punch's latest release, marks Charlie's inaugural release with the band. Released February 28th of 2020, this top 10 charting release in several countries symbolizes a rebirth of the band, as stated by founding member Zoltan Bathory. In this performance-packed episode, Charlie and I talk about his history, education, techniques, his time with Death Punch, and discuss how his involvement may impact the future releases from Death Punch. Charlie, how you been doing?
Yeah, good, man. Really good. Just enjoying the break at home a little bit and doing a lot of yard work and just catching up on stuff I never get to do.
So,
Yeah.
You guys had a pretty big tour planned for this year, right?
Yeah, it was supposed to be going on right now. I was actually supposed to play the Excel last night. But we were lucky to get ahead of it, so it actually got postponed to the fall.
Okay.
So, yeah, as of now, it's basically the same exact tour that would have happened right now. It's just going to happen in basically October, November.
Now, they're talking about a second wave of COVID-19 around that time period. Do you have secondary plans for it, or at this point you're just kind of spearheading it?
Yeah, probably just see what happens,
Okay.
Yeah, just kind of, see how these next 2 months go. We wouldn't really have to make a decision, for roughly 2 months. I'd say we have about that much time. So we'll just kind of see how things roll here and, go with the flow of it.
Well, dude, I want to say your new CD, F8, is phenomenal. Right here.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, awesome.
But what's interesting is it's charting really good right now. So, I was looking at some of the stats. In the U.S., it was number 8. And all over places in the high numbers, except for New Zealand, of course, but they don't know anything about metal, right? Now, how does it feel to be part of a band that's actually charting so well?
Yeah, it's I guess one of those things I never really thought about going into it. I more thought about the actual job of it, or the gig of it. I thought more about it from that perspective of the daily routine of it all, not so much to think about it now, I've actually and I think we were, it hit really high up on all the Billboard, the individual rock metal charts. It did really well. And then, I think it was number 8 overall for a while or something, which is pretty wild to think of being in the top 10, of a Billboard chart of any, just the top 10 Billboard, whatever, the Hot 100 or whatever they call it. Pretty surreal, really, especially because, it's just something that I think maybe when you're young you think about, and then the older you get, you don't really think about it as much until it happens, and then you're like, oh wow, what are the chances of that happening? In metal, pretty much 0.
Exactly.
1.
Yeah.
Well, we have to give it some percentage it happened, but
right.
Probably 2%. So yeah, really cool.
Well, such a strong record. I think it's the strongest record in some time. I think it was May through October of last year, primarily the band wrote the material. How much time did you guys spend on writing it? I mean, were any songs completed before you joined the band, or not?
Not really, actually. There was some ideas completed on the first tour that I did in the fall of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think most of it went on, basically when that tour ended, January. There was ideas rolling already. And then, me and Zoltan wrote a bunch of chunks of it together, probably I don't even remember when that was, April or something
Okay.
of May, maybe of April, May of 2019. And so, yeah, most of it just took place during the summer um, of last year where we weren't really touring. So like we toured last summer for a month, but it was only like 11 shows, just like the festival shows and stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, I was kind of before that and then really heavy after that before the fall tour of last year.
So what's that look like writing with Zoltan? Like, what was your
That's
process?
literally me and him sitting in a room together in his house where he has like a nice studio like sort of setup. Like it's still like a normal room though, so you can relax in it. I had an electric kit, and then he just jammed out ideas that he had, like held on to maybe for a while, or who really knows how long he had some of these ideas. But some of them were riff ideas, some of them came from us just jamming, and then we would like maybe take a chunk of it and rework it or like add stuff to it. So it's pretty much how you'd expect the writing to go for me and him,
Mhm.
because we more work together, and then like obviously like him and Kevin would work together on their own and all of that, and like, but this is more pre-production stuff. And then yeah, honestly, that just jamming in a room and then taking ideas and yeah, messing with them. But all in all, pretty easy going. Obviously, with me being in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and him in Vegas, it was easier for me to just go stay there for 2.5 weeks.
Okay.
And we just like got together every day, and however much we jammed that day is how much we jammed that day.
Mhm.
So it'd be 2 or 3 hours or something for 2.5 weeks, and then that was pretty much that for my part of it, because I obviously came in. I wouldn't say late, but I came in on the back edge of the process as far as like I'm in Minnesota, they're in Vegas. It's not like I'm going to go down to the studio every day and just start hashing into like ideas and concepts. So
Right.
we kind of let the tunes write themselves, but you can hear a lot of like if you know me in Zoltan's style, which is more rhythmic and heavy,
Mhm.
you can hear what parts we wrote together. Like you would be like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Some of the songs that I love is how you matched up your bass drum pattern specifically with the guitar riffs.
That was definitely one thing that you notice on this album versus the older ones.
Oh,
There's
completely.
more rhythmic pattern stuff.
Well, specifically, there's a riff that Zoltan does in "This Is War" that you're matching your bass drum patterns with. Dude, that's so brutal.
Yeah, yeah, that whole one.
So, how long did it
Yeah,
take you to work that pattern out with him? Just that one pattern?
nothing. Yeah, no time. It's more just deciding on a pattern.
Yeah.
Like for me, especially if it comes to like catching patterns with my feet.
Mhm.
If my hands are doing something easy over the top of it, I could pretty much throw out any pattern I would need to on my feet if it's like normal in my hands,
Okay.
especially with my right hand. If I start to get really intricate with my right hand, I might have to figure something out. Like I'll break it down to like a couple of beats. Like, oh yeah, that's where it is, because I'll just feel my body suck down or like get weak.
Okay.
And then I'll just like do that. But I'm not doing any crazy hand stuff with Death Punch where it's an issue. So I can pretty much throw out any foot pattern that I would need to. That one's pretty fast. So that one for sure would be like one I enjoy playing it, even if I don't need to technically practice it. I enjoy playing it as much as I possibly can, so that when I go and jump into it, it's nothing. Especially because if you notice on that riff, the triplet
Yeah.
riff before it or after it, depending on what part of the tune you're in, that
Yeah.
that whole thing going from one to the next, just because we're shifting from triplet feel to duple feel, you get that like the more control I have, the better. So
Right.
yeah, patterns to me pretty much dictated based on my other limbs.
Well, what about "To Be Alone"? Now, what was interesting about this pattern is that you had like a solid count, like 4/4 count, but it seems like you're doing the double bass pattern riff with Zoltan on the like fifth count.
Yeah. That I had nothing to do with that tune. Yeah, like as far as like the writing of it goes and
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what part you're talking about. With that kind of stuff, I close my hi hat and do it with the double kick stuff all the same.
Okay.
But yeah, any patterns like that, as long as my hands are staying in a realm of normalcy, like mainly meaning repetition for me. Like if it's a repeating pattern,
Yeah.
it then I can work my way through it pretty fast. If it's like a broken pattern in my right hand and it starts to get more of like a Latin vibe, like a like a guarancaro or something, like a zing ding 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 ding, where I need to like, yeah, then it'll be like, or that was a Cascara I just sang, but whatever the case, you get what I mean. Where if it's like a long drawn out pattern,
Yeah.
then I'll have to like piece it together maybe for a little bit. But yeah, any rock stuff or anything like that, it's essentially just kind of coming out of me. Whatever happens, happens, sort of a thing.
So by any chance, will that be the next single? Because I love that song.
I think I like that song a lot too. I think that might be my favorite overall song on the album. If I had to like pick one that kind of covered both, whatever you want to call it.
Well, it's
like,
very radio friendly,
but it's catchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is a single. Yeah.
Well, it better be. I haven't seen a video for it yet.
Pretty sure it is. We haven't done a lot of video stuff because obviously things got weird with travel.
Right.
So any plans we had for like music video wise, I think we're just kind of putting on the back burner until we can do something fun, because Death Punch likes to go all out with their videos and do goofy stuff.
Right.
And I mean, with Inside Out, we did it on the road, and so we recorded that like before shows.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just like us rehearsing songs, and we would film it, and then like just kind of cut it together with road footage and stuff. Just because we were touring so heavy fall of 2019, and then the Megadeth tour, like us and Megadeth, just this winter of 2020 or whatever you want to call it,
Right.
Early 2020. Yeah, so yeah, video stuff should happen, and I'm pretty much 100% that To Be Alone's a single.
Okay.
But I'm kind of guessing along with you because I actually don't know.
Okay. So the other third song that I chose for bass patterns matching with Zoltan would be Mother May I. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, him and I pretty much wrote that whole tune together. Yeah.
Okay.
That one is especially we varied, or like varied's a weird word. We constructed it and then like tried different versions of it, and like ended up doing like the 2-bar phrase version of it, which was that was more Kevin and Zoe, because I wasn't down there then. So they kind of, that's the thing. Zoltan essentially would come in with our pre-production stuff, and it's me literally playing an electronic drum set but recording it live, and then like we keep the MIDI maps so you could use it, which there would be no point because Kevin does what Kevin does. But yeah, it's like the MIDI map really did us no good anyway, so we would just record it live just for the pre-pro version, and then that's where it gets hacked up and turned into songs and stuff like that, obviously. Like most people write. But with that specific riff, I remember me and Zoe did a lot with it at his house, and so we had tried it like however many different ways, but the main rhythm was always the same.
Okay.
Like that same kick thing. It was more a matter of phrasing. But yeah, that one actually was a little more tricky because it has that like halftime feel. And we were doing it when we were writing it at his house and stuff. I remember trying a lot of different feel changes, like double time and normal time and halftime and stuff. So I remember feeling that pattern a little bit. But that's a good example of like the new Death Punch, if you will, like where like it's much more rhythmically driven instead of just straight up like double kick through that riff. You know what I mean?
Oh, exactly. And that's what I love.
Yeah.
I was really intrigued to find out what your voice would be in this band. Surprisingly, though, your parts are very true to the Death Punch sound.
That's pretty intentional.
Okay, I was going to ask you about
that's
that.
not pretty intentional. That is intentional. Yeah, especially with like that time of, like I was still pretty new to the band overall, as far as like they were friends of mine at the time, obviously, and like we spent time together on the road, but not really, you know what I mean? So I didn't want to come in and be the dude who's like, hey, look what I can do, and like throw all my prog stuff at him. Zoltan loves all that stuff. That's a big reason why I joined the band in the first place, is because they all enjoy that type of music, especially Zoltan.
Okay.
Jason not so much. I mean, he respects it and listens to it and checks it out, but it's not something he doesn't throw on periphery and jam to that,
Okay.
So with Zoe, to have more of like a rhythmic player who can catch all that stuff,
Hmm.
that's like what he's always enjoyed. You can tell if you like, Zoltan wrote the whole first record and I think most of the second by himself.
Wow.
So it's much more. That's much more. I mean, obviously Ivan wrote his parts and all that, but
Right.
he wrote all the music. So you can tell that that's more the old stuff. It's just that he didn't have a drummer who could play that way to that music as far as well he was writing it. And then when Jeremy joined after most of that music was written
Hmm.
because Zoltan already had it written or whatever. And so then it just became what it was, like pattern wise. But now it's kind of like the band has gone through this huge evolution, and they're so mass. They were so massive when I joined. I wasn't going to come in and just be like, well, we should completely change the sound. But where I can tell the sound change is in the demeanor of Ivan, number one, and then like demeanor meaning his vocal demeanor and like it's my favorite Ivan record by a lot.
Oh yeah.
You can tell it's more like you could tell he was sober and really took it seriously. Not to say that the heavy stuff before was based on him being sober or not, but you know what I mean.
Right.
You could tell he dug deeper. So yeah, with all of that churning, the last thing I was going to do is come in and just be like, well, let's throw 7 over this and see how that sounds. So I took it pretty much like how I would play rock music that has a little edge to it, and that's pretty much the same way as it's always been anyway. Like that's Death Punch sound for you. It's like it's rock music with an edge that's metal really, and but the grooves are all pretty. They're grinding and chuggy, and not like me playing upbeats on snares a lot or stuff like that. And so live, I will say some of these tunes are going to change a little bit because you know how it is. Like on a record, something
Hmm.
comes across one way, and then live, I can get away with a lot more live, I think, especially with fills. Not that the fills, it's not like I look back and be like, oh man, I wish I would have made that crazy. Meaning, now that it's going to be live, I can make it crazy, and it'll still translate the same effect, but I'll have a little more fun doing it, and it'll be a little more me still. And what I think is in the future to come is where you're going to see a little bit more of me shine. As far as like, I wouldn't even say it's me shining. It's more like me bringing my elements to the table and them getting mixed into the batter. Because with this one, I was at home most of it, except for writing chunks when I could. And I'm looking forward to it. I think the next one's going to be amazing.
Really.
I think even I think even with me, Ansel, and Ivan, the way we've talked about the future of like tune writing and stuff, I think it's going to be really good because it's just going to have more of like a vibe to it, just like F8 does. Like
Mhm.
F8 to me has way more of a vibe. Like since I liked the Wrong Side of Heaven albums. I thought there was a lot of great moments on those albums, but American Capitalist to me had the most I don't know. It's just like, when a band's in their prime and they write their best album type of a feel, like a Dream Theater Scenes from a Memory.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean anything else isn't as good, but there's some vibe to it where it's like, oh, I like this. And I feel like F8 has a lot of that in its own way. And then I think the next one's even going to be more of that, of like, oh, wow, they're really transforming.
So you really think they're going to bring in like some of the prog elements?
Yeah, and I don't think they'll necessarily come in a proggy way, but I think what it'll do is it'll bring a new flavor that's like Death Punch, and this is all me just talking out and thinking out loud, so it's not gonna happen. For all I know, we'll come out with like a straight ahead heavy record, but it just, to me, I feel like that's where it's headed, and I think for the better. And in prog, it'll never be like odd time signature proggy stuff. Like me and Zoltan came up with a cool odd time signature riff, and that got shut down on this album. I remember hearing. Well, I know it didn't make it, but it was really cool. So like that's all in the mix of it. It's just a matter of like what fits the vibe, and I think it's just, yeah, vibey is the right word to use for it. I think everything's going to get a little more vibey.
Cool. Well, because Zoltan has mentioned this seems like a bit of a rebirth for the band. So, Ivan's sobriety, how do you think that's played a role? Because, I know he brought a lot of, and I'm not saying negatively, because I've known these guys for years. They've been cool.
Yeah.
I love them to death.
Yeah.
But, he had his demons. And in Inside Out and Out are kind of talking about some of those demons.
Yep.
I know you really didn't work with him during that time period, but have you seen a change in him with this new record?
Crazy change in Ivan since the first time I met him till now.
Okay.
I think the main one being, I was always willing in the early days to like not take anything personally if anything was like said or done, even if it wasn't directed at me like personally, but just the situation.
Right.
I was very good about not holding that against anybody, because that is a stressful situation to be on. They literally got off the road, and I'll answer two questions at once here. I joined them on their summer tour of 2018, and I jammed 3 tunes with them in a sound check before a show. And that's how I got the gig, essentially. Is like I was an assumed audition, so to speak. That's the way I would put it.
Okay.
So I went down there, I was in Chicago, so like I drove down there. I was going to go down to hang out with the guys anyway. I'd already been talking to them. I knew them. We were friends, essentially. Me and Jeremy had known each other on the internet for probably a year and a half and talked drums. Me and Jason had already been now talking for like 6 months. Zoltan had already talked to me, but he didn't tell me what it was about. But he told me, like, don't disappear. Like, there's some things that, might work out or whatever. And so I knew kind of what he was referring to.
Right.
And then went down, jammed the tunes. It went well. I played fine, and they seemed to enjoy it. And then I spent like 4 days with them on the road, like learning everything. But second I got off the kit, it was like, all right, what do you want to change? What do you got to do? Do you want to bring in a kit? Should we just use this kit? So it was like assumed I was going to stick around.
Wow.
And so I went home for a month. Well, they went home for a month. So I was home for basically 2 months before I toured my first tour with them, and then learned all the tunes or whatever, and learned the show as the show was. And that's the hardest part. It's not the songs, it's all the gaps. And so yeah, that's how I got the gig, essentially, and long story short. And then when I went down, started the tour, that was, our only rehearsals were 4 days before the tour started.
Okay.
And so we were at SIR in Vegas. And in those days, Ivan, to come back around, he was more, I think there was just so much turmoil in general. I don't think he was really focused on me as a person, I guess you would say. Like, I don't think he gave a crap whether he liked me or didn't like me, or it was all irrelevant. Can you get up there and play the drums and do the gig,
Right.
But that changed. And so we became really close, actually, and we're really close now. But yeah, Ivan then, I would tell him this too. I'm not like speaking out of turn here when I say this. He was much more, you could tell things were fresh for him. He was living things in life that he would ignore without, like, he would use his booze. His booze was his vice. He would use the booze to like escape certain maybe thoughts, or, I'm just going to assume like processes of life. And, obviously you're like a mega star too. So there's that aspect of it, but he would ignore that with booze. Well, I could tell he was like learning new ways about himself in those that era. And the difference from that era Ivan to now, even like last summer Ivan, which was the second tour I did with Death Punch, 2019, that was a major shift where I was like, oh wow, like crazy difference. Just overall demeanor, happier, if you want to call it happy, just more himself. You could just tell he was settled in with himself. And then the last tours we did, the two, it was like even a next level of it, where it's just like you can just tell he came into his own sober self in like a really good way. So it made the transitions a lot easier, because if the lead singer's pissed off, everybody's pissed off. And Ivan is an emotional guy. That's Ivan. That's what makes him so good too.
Right.
So if you have him in a bad mood, I mean, nobody wants anybody who is boisterous, not in a bad way boisterous, but you know what I mean, just a personality.
Right.
If he was in a bad mood, you felt it. And so, man, the fun we've had on the last 2 tours in particular, just because they're fresh in my memory,
Yes.
especially Europe, we had a blast. Like, we all hung out, like we did things, you know, which was pretty new since I'd been in the band, because I was a new guy too. So it's been such a change. It's been awesome.
Dude, that's so amazing.
And we talk almost every day too on the phone, like texting.
Dude, that's so awesome. I'm so glad it's working out so well for you. Because you know, I was wondering how the dynamic would change. I didn't know you had a history with them beforehand. I knew you knew Jeremy,
Jeremy
and
Jason,
and Jason, yeah. Anyways, it's fantastic. So let's get into it then.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued because I've known Jeremy for years, but the thing is, he never told me, and he went radio silent after he left the band, for the most part.
Yeah.
And he and I haven't talked. First, can we talk about his back injuries? I've never gotten a clear answer of what his back injuries are.
I don't really know either. I just think it was something with that lower, you know, I think it's with the lower part, and his injuries were his back, but I think like also like he would tell me, just like, when this is way before Death Punch, like way before I was even, this was when they were finishing up the one before me, And Justice for None.
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling me, he's like, dude, make sure you're rolling your hips, make sure you're rolling like your lower back and like your ass muscles and stuff, to like get it to a point. Because I think what was happening, and this is my guess, is that lower back issue or whatever that was mainly bugging him.
Yeah.
Just all those muscles then on your lower extremities too, everything just pulling. So I don't actually know exactly what it was either, because I know he's done a few little surgeries since. But I think it's like literal like pinched nerves and stuff like that.
Okay.
That would be my guess. But that was just me judging from watching his physical. When I would sit behind him and watch him play drums on the stage, it seemed to me that it was nerve based. But I don't know shit either. So
Okay. Do you still talk with him now or not?
I haven't in a long time now, but for no reason in particular. Like, yeah, we would randomly text like, "Hey, how's it going, man? Oh yeah, good." Da da da. But that's all our relationship ever was, anyways.
Okay.
And then I just wanted to be cool too, because like leaving a massive band, like I didn't want to almost like essentially rub it in his face, like, "How's it going, man?" While I'm out there on the road or something, even though it's not what I'm doing, and I don't think he would take it like that.
No.
But sometimes you just don't want things brought up if you don't want to look them right in the face, type of a thing. So
Right.
I was kind of like easy on it about that too. But he's good. Like him and Jason hang out and talk all the time and all of that. Like I know there's no real like it wasn't anything weird. It's just, yeah, I think the back injury thing was like the final straw of, you know, like, do I really want to tour around trying to play these heavy, crazy tunes anymore when I like can't sit down comfortably? You know, no. But yeah, I never heard details myself either, other than the obvious like that everybody else knows.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because when he left, he really left. So.
Oh yeah, and I knew that though too. Like he never once, but that's the way Jeremy is too. He is not the type of guy. I feel like of what I know of him, if he says like I'm done, he's gonna be done. Even if he like changed his mind a week later. Because I did talk to him once, I remember, and he wouldn't mind me saying this, where I talked to him once and he was just like, "Oh yeah, it's weird," because I asked him how he felt about it. And he's like, "Yeah, it's kind of weird sometimes when I see like a post about like a big show that night or whatever, like, oh wow, that's not me playing it, you know."
Mm-hmm.
But that's to be expected.
Well, totally. I mean, it's got to be such a dichotomy of emotions on his behalf. But, you know, he's always been an incredible person as far as with my interactions.
Oh, yeah.
And your story is just a testament to that. So for the people who might not be familiar with it, Jeremy used to watch you and communicate with you on Instagram, watching your videos, open to communication. Yep. Can you talk about the very first email or contact he gave to you about saying, "Hey, would you consider filling in for me?"
Yeah, it was something along the lines of like, um, well, he would always say things to me like, "Yeah, man, I got to get you a big gig. Like, you need to be on the big stage. Like, this is a shame that you're not in a big band." So I was always like, "Yeah, let me know when, you know." And little did I know, I think he was referring to Death Punch at that time, but that was neither here nor there, anyways. Um, I think he was maybe trying to prep my brain or to see how I would react to maybe be like, oh, I don't want to be on an arena touring act, or um, just to catch my vibe, maybe. Who knows? But nonetheless, it was pretty natural because, to be completely honest with you, he didn't even bring it up to me. It was Jason.
Oh,
Um, because I got an email from Jason one morning, I'll never forget. And I woke up and I like checked my email like normal, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, because it said Jason Hook or whatever, and then he like filled it in as if I didn't know who he was. So he put like, oh, I'm the guitar player for Five Finger Death Punch, and blah 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 blah. Didn't really bring up Death Punch quite yet, except for he did a little bit, where he was like, this is neither here nor there, but like there could be some Death Punch stuff involved down the road too. So I just want to start talking to you and blah blah blah. So that was kind of the opening one, and that was like April or May of 2018.
oh, wow, okay.
Yep. So it was like 6 months before that I did that first tour or whatever, and really it was about 3 months before the talks got serious about like I got a message from Zoltan one night. I had no idea. Well, I knew who Zoltan was. I'd never talked to him once or anything. And he was like, "Hey, man, this is funny too." He's like, "Don't go juggling chainsaws or disappear on me. I got some things for next year that I need to talk to you about. But we're touring the rest of the year, like, because at that point I didn't know I was going to do the fall tour, and neither did they. They
Okay.
didn't know I was going to do it either.
All right.
So we're going to tour all year. We got some time off in the beginning of the year. Let's talk then." Well, that changed real fast. And actually, fun drum story. When I got the actual call to go down to Chicago to play 3 tunes with them, which essentially was telling me I got the fall gig, because Jeremy called me, but I was on the phone with Drumeo on Skype with Dave from Drumeo, planning my whole Drumeo trip, because I had that planned for November of 2018.
Okay.
So I see my phone blowing up, but I left it alone, and then I look and it's like Jeremy, Jason, Zoltan, like, I'm like, what the hell? So I just called Jeremy, and that was the first time I ever talked to him on the phone too. And he's like, "Hey man, I know you're coming down next week, learn 3 tunes, because this fall I'm gonna have to take off. Like, I'm gonna have to take the tour off, and I want you to be my guy to fill in. So do that." So I'm like, okay. After I just got done planning Drumeo, which was always like I wouldn't call that a dream, but it's like I was really excited to do it.
Right.
So that's like a drummer's worst nightmare, in a sense, in the worst, greatest nightmare. I called Drumeo back and I'm like, "Hey Dave, sorry man, but I just got a tour I can't turn down." So yeah, that was that. That was pretty much that story told in 2 separate chunks.
Well, then, because you've kind of answered some of my questions, but one of them, so you learned 3 songs. I was going to ask you how many songs you had to learn.
Yeah, 3. I learned like 5, but 3 was what I was told I was going to play.
Okay. Dude, it's so brutal. So, like, when they gave you the list, how long did it take you to work together learning the songs for the tour? I know you said the spaces were the difficult part, but, like, they modify some of their songs live. Did they give you recordings or what?
Yeah, not for the initial audition.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, I had a whole video of the show start to finish from above Jeremy, and like I went and watched like 3 shows or something like that. I like traveled with them. So when I drove to Chicago, my girlfriend dropped me off. I stayed with them for like, yeah, I think 3 shows, and we just hung out, and like I just rode the bus with them and then flew home, like, yeah, whatever, 4 days later. And so, yeah, I got to watch the show to like see what people did, and then I got to learn it based on the video. I didn't even play anymore to the live, or I'm sorry, the pre-recorded album tracks.
Okay.
The only situation there is there's now been, I would say, 6 or 7 tunes I've played with Death Punch where the first time I played the song with them was on stage. So there's many times I wake up and Ivan wants to add a song to the set list or something, and they've all played it before in the near future, so they can all like get it together, and I had to like go and learn the song. I never even heard it before.
So what's that like?
That's not fun. But but you have to. What I had to do was learn to embrace that challenge, because I will say this: when you get to a point in your life, musically, I should say, like career music, whatever, where you're finally getting what you felt you deserved your whole life, if you want to call it deserved,
Right.
but like what you've been working towards. The last thing I'm going to do is like not embrace any challenge above that, because at this point in my life, there's nothing. You could throw anything at me and I'm not afraid of it, like musically on a stage or something.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can't scare me. So there's kind of there's a fun side of it where like you start to embrace that aspect more than the show itself, because you're like, well, I know I can play the show. I'm going to kill it every night. I'm never going to screw it up, barring something stupid. And and like I'm never going to derail it, or like, because the first show I ever played, I was so nervous. I don't even think I knew how nervous I was before that show, until I now look back. Because now before a show, I literally am psyched. I'm like, oh yeah, like let's get going. You get amped up and you're ready.
Yeah.
Back in that first show, man, I remember sitting there like, I was just like, don't screw up the counts. All I wanted to do was not count in something wrong, because it's all, most of it it's to a click. So if you screwed it up, it's happened a couple times actually though, and really all we do is kill the click and play the song without the click.
Okay.
Because we play like 3-ish tunes with no click anyway. So yeah, that it's quite a challenge though. I wouldn't wish it upon people like to get up on stage in front of 10,000 and play a tune you've never ran with a band. But that being said, I mean, that's why I played the crazy music I played. And like, I feel like I prepared myself for situations like that. And my memory is really good. And like the way I mental imagery music, that's why I could play like, 40-minute prog sets without like notation of Dream Theater tunes or Between the Buried and Me or whatever. Like I've always relied on my memory and like how I see things, if that mental imagery see things.
Yes.
As a strong suit of mine when it comes to drumming.
Opening beats provided by Alec Tackmann. You too can own this fantastic multi-volume library of live drum loops and samples. Whether you're a drummer looking for new ideas or a songwriter looking for a drum loop library, this is the library you're looking for. Support a local musician and drummer. Go to Alec Tackmann's website. That is www.alectackmann.com. Spelled AlecTackmann. Are you looking for a drum instructor that will help you find your own musical voice? Whether you're a beginner, advanced, or in between, the David Stanek School of Drumming offers an experienced and professional approach to help you take control of your drumming. David served on the faculty of McNally Smith College of Music for 27 years. Currently, he serves on the Percussive Art Society Drum Set Committee and is a member of the Modern Drummer, Remo, and Vic Firth education teams. David has authored multiple books including Mastering the Tables of Time. It was voted the #1 education book in the Modern Drummer 2009 Readers Poll. Let David help you find your beat. Please visit www.davidstanekschoolofdrumming.com. David Stanek is spelled DavidStanoch, schoolofdrumming.com. Again, the David Stanek School of Drumming. You've been listening to Minnesota Drummer. Minnesota Drummer is copyright 2020, all rights reserved. Any content played or viewed during this broadcast is used with permission, is copyright of the respective owners, and is used for promotional purposes only. No part of this broadcast can be edited, reproduced, and cannot be sold. Please look us up and follow us on our various social media sites. You can follow us at minnesotadrummer.com. There you'll find our contact forum where you can give us feedback and recommend a drummer. Thank you for listening.